Hi everybody, welcome to Ecodriver. My name is Helmut. In this video I will give you 5 tips for saving a lot of fuel and money by driving more efficiently with conventional ICE cars, petrol and diesel. If you haven't seen it yet, there are already 3 videos of the series which are about hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EVs, and I'll put the link in the description box below. So without any further ado, let's come to the 5 tips. Number 1. Keep the car in motion. Why is this important? Yeah, the most energy, or the most relative energy relative to the distance covered you need when you accelerate from a standstill. So therefore it's important to keep the car in motion, to keep the car rolling, and to avoid to accelerate from 0 to your desired speed. I'll show you a short clip of my trip with the Volvo XC40. You see here we're coming off the underpass and the traffic light in front is red. I am approaching the traffic light and the end of the queue in a way that allows me to keep the vehicle in motion. So we go down to 10 kilometers an hour, but we avoid to accelerate from 0 and therefore save some fuel. Of course, sometimes it's not possible. The traffic light is red for too long time, you have a too long queue in front of you, somebody else is stopping in front of you, you have no chance to pass them. So yes, sometimes you cannot avoid it, but if you can avoid it, then try. Of course, before you crash into somebody or something, you brake, but with reading the road ahead of you, with trying to anticipate what other road users are doing, or maybe if you know the road, if you know your daily commute, then you know how the traffic lights are shifting. If you go 5 miles an hour or 5 kilometers an hour slower towards the traffic light, then you can avoid a stop, then why not doing it? Of course, try always not to block other road users. It's always a bit of a compromise between trying to go as efficiently as possible and not being a blockage to other road users. Tip number 2, use the injection cutoff. ICE cars have a feature that if the car is driving the engine, or you feel this if the engine is braking the car a little bit, then the injection is cut off. So there's no fuel injected. And you can use this to your advantage if you try to go as much as possible in this mode. What you shouldn't do is, if you see you need to come to a stop or you need to reduce the speed, to step on the clutch and just keep the car rolling. Always try to use the engine as the brake for your car, and with the different gears you can select the intensity. So if you think you could keep the car rolling, just use maybe the 5th or 6th gear. You have a reduced braking, but you still don't inject, or the engine still doesn't inject any fuel, and therefore you don't need any fuel at all. There might be some exceptions. For example, if the braking, even in the highest gear, would be too strong, or you are going so slow that you need to shift back, and in the 4th, 3rd or 2nd gear the braking would be too strong. So then it might make sense to step on the clutch and keep the car coasting. With mild hybrids, they have a feature, it's the so-called coast mode. If you take your foot off the accelerator, then it might well be that the car is decoupling and coasting. But that's a good thing, because the engine isn't kept at idling revs by injecting fuel. It's kept at idling revs by the starter generator, by the alternator. And the energy for that is coming from the car's battery, and the energy is produced by braking. So when you brake, you charge your battery, and it helps you when you accelerate. It gives you a couple of kilowatts to accelerate, and it helps you saving fuel by coasting without injecting any fuel. If you have a car like this, then it might well be that you need to adapt your driving behavior a little bit, because then you can lift your foot off the gas much sooner, and you can use the momentum to a greater extent and therefore save more fuel. Tip number 3, high load at low revs. What does that mean? I'll show you here a diagram of the specific consumption at different revs and at different loads. And this is a generic diagram for any petrol engine. And you see here, that's the specific consumption, 500, 300, 260, and the lowest is 225 grams per kilowatt hours. So that means you have the least consumption per power unit, grams per kilowatt hours, at revs ranging from, that's around 1300 to 2200, 2300. So that means keep the revs low, but you also have to look at the left here. It's the load on the engine. So what does this mean for us when you're driving? Keep the revs low, but you can push the accelerator pedal rather hard. With automatic gearboxes, of course, you have to avoid that the gearbox shifts back and that you go back to higher revs. But with a manual gearbox, just keep the revs around 2000, maybe even a little bit below. And normally you have enough power, especially with bigger engines. But even with small engines, I've done some tests with 1 liter engines, Ford Focus or Ford Puma. And if you have seen those videos, you see that you can drive normally in traffic without being a blockage to other users with keeping the revs almost all the time below 2000 RPMs. I show you here another short clip with the Volvo XC40. You see, we're going around the corner from the red light. We have a 50 kilometers an hour speed limit. I'm accelerating and the automatic gearbox shifts around 2000, even below. I keep the revs below 2000. I'm accelerating quicker than the Suzuki on the left. And here is 70 and I'm accelerating up to 70. I'm no blockage to other road users, and I kept the revs mostly below 2000. And this is a 3-cylinder petrol engine. So if there is no need for high power, just keep the revs down and the load up. Tip number 4, and if you have seen my other videos, you will know what's coming now: playing with the road. Imagine a roller coaster. You go up and down basically with no additional power apart from the one that is stored in the elevation of the cars. So if you go down, you accelerate. If you go up, you lose some speed, and then you accelerate, and so on. And you can do the same on the road. And I'll show you a video here of my trip with the Subaru Outback. We're going into this hill just below 60 kilometers an hour, and then I'm slowly reducing the speed when I go up, and when we're coming to the top, I'm just at around 48 kilometers an hour, and once it flattens, I re-accelerate up to just above 50 kilometers an hour. This isn't only restricted to hilly roads, you can also do this in the city. I'll show you here my trip with the Ford Focus, and you see here I'm coming off a bridge. It's going down a little bit. You see the current consumption is 0, so I do nothing. I think I'm in 5th gear and the car is accelerating a little bit. I cannot go faster anyway because of the traffic in front of me. And now we are going into the underpass. I still not touching any pedal at all, and we're re-accelerating from 50, 55 and going through the underpass. And then when it goes out of the underpass, it's a little bit uphill. We're reducing the speed and there is a red light anyway, but we still avoid stopping. Always try to use the change of gradient to your advantage. And finally, tip number 5, and this is one might sound a little bit strange, and one of my subscribers has mentioned this, and I know this from my professional experience: using the drive modes correctly. I want to talk especially about the eco mode. pressing the eco mode button and just driving as you used to and not being aware that you are in eco mode sometimes or often doesn't have the desired effect. I'll give you an example from my professional background. City buses that transport people in town. With their gearbox you can set different programs, and I often see this with bus operators, that they have the super eco mode, or the most efficient, the most economical mode of the gearbox activated. But what they experience is that the fuel consumption is going up. Why? Because the gearbox is shifting so early at such low revs that the drivers are under the impression they don't have enough power and they cannot accelerate quickly enough. So what do? They press the accelerator pedal harder, they shift the gears manually, and therefore you have higher revs, and then the consumption goes up. And with eco mode, subconsciously, it might be that this happens as well. With most cars, the eco mode reduces the power a little bit, the gearbox shifts a little bit earlier at lower revs, and therefore you might be under the impression that you don't have enough power, and you just press the accelerator pedal a bit more and you accelerate longer, and because the engine doesn't rev up that much, and you maybe subconsciously think you might compensate for this by pressing the accelerator pedal harder. And this then leads to a higher consumption. I often hear people complain about, yeah, you shouldn't use eco mode because you have a higher consumption. It's not the eco mode that's the problem, it's the behavior of the driver in eco mode, where you just try to compensate for the reduced power output, especially with cars with not very strong engines. If you have 300 horsepower, then eco mode isn't a problem because you still have enough power when you are at low revs. But generally, if you're driving eco mode, you have to be in eco mode yourself, and then you can save a lot of fuel. Sometimes it might really be more efficient to go in normal mode and maybe accelerate a little bit faster, but keep and then have the car rolling. So if you're driving in eco mode, or however it is called with different car manufacturers, you have to be aware of this and adapt yourself to the different behavior of the vehicle in eco mode. Those were my 5 tips for you to drive ICE cars more efficiently. If you generally like what I'm doing, and if you want to see more of my regular stuff, my consumption tests, feel free to subscribe this channel. And if you hit the notification bell, you won't miss any new video. Thanks for watching, take care, see you next time.